Part 151. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanba. Chapter 1501. Fox demons are divided into four major surnames, namely Tishan, Qingkaiu, Yosu, and Chunyu. Qingkaiu and Tishan are relatively well known, and their reputations are also very famous. Chunyu, Chu Yuan's Tianwen records a daughter of the Chunyu clan, a female tribe from the south of Donghai who uses the nine-tailed fox as a totem. In other words, the Chunyu clan has no males, only females. In the Xia dynasty, there was Hou Yi, the monarch of a poor country. Hou Yi here refers to either Hou Yi who shot the sun, or to the monarch of a country with the same name. Hou Yi had a wife who colluded with Han Zuo and the Chunyu family, and killed Hou Yi and his trusted ministers within 3 years. Later, Han Zuo killed Hou Yi, proclaimed himself king, and made Chunyu the king. Princess. Tishan clan. According to legend, Dao's wife was Tishan clan's nine-tailed fox. During the Three Emperors era, the biggest difficulty was floods. At that time, Dao met Envjiao of Donghai and became sworn husband and wife. Envjiao's family was the most powerful Tishan clan in Donghai. The purpose of Dao and Envjiao Jibai becoming husband and wife was to marry, because in this way the whole Donghai would be used for it. In fact, the most important thing is that Dao and Envjiao are in love. Even a being like Dao can only marry the Tishan family. On the fourth day after getting married, Dao left Tishan to control floods. The foxes of the Tishan family attach great importance to feelings. After Dao left, the girl became lovesick and abandoned Tishan, the hometown of millions of Dao. One time, Envjiao went to deliver food to Dao, and she saw Dao who had turned into a bear. She was very ashamed, and then turned into a stone. Dao asked for his son, and Chiye was born. These are all myths and legends, no one knows the real situation. Besides, there is the Su family. Sudaji was one of the ancient vassal states in the Xia, Shang, and Zhou dynasties. Hu Songzi said that the fox demon that was pestering him belonged to the Su family. I immediately thought of Sudaji. Is there any connection between them? In other words, Hu Songzi is Sudaji's sitting boy. I looked at Hu Songzi and asked, "Brother Hu, did the fox demon say anything to you?" Hu Songzi thought for a while and replied, "Actually, I didn't say anything. I just said that my time has come and I want to sit down and be a boy again." Xiao Su, brother Hu doesn't want to die, is there any way you can save brother Hu? I pondered for a moment and said, there is a way, let's go to the Fox Fairy Temple with me tonight. I will invite the Fox Fairy out and confront her face to face. If she is willing to let you go, then all the best. If she refuses, don't blame me for being rude. Be polite first, then attack. Let's discuss it carefully first. If it doesn't work, I will take action. If it weren't for a fox demon as powerful as Sudaji, I would have completely ignored some of the little fox demons like me. After all, if I wasn't good enough, Su Tianqian would still be here. Hu Songzi thanked me repeatedly. "Xiao Su, thank you." I waved my hand and said, "Brother Hu, you don't have to thank me. We are from the same village." I gave Hu Songzi a few words and left with Su Tianqian. On the way home, I said to Su Tianqian, "Tianqian, do you think the fox fairy who is pestering brother Hu is Sudaji?" Su Tianqian pondered for a moment and replied, "Probably not. Sudaji is not an ordinary fox demon. Moreover, she has not been conferred as a god, so she is not worthy of having a sitting boy. However, that fox fairy must have the Su family and must be the same as Sudaji, it's inseparable." Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanba. Chapter 1502. In the Battle of the Gods, almost everyone became gods, except Sudaji who was killed by Zhangxia. No one knows the reason for this. Alas. I sighed slightly and said, "No matter what, let's wait and see tonight." Su Tianqian nodded, and Su Tianqian and I returned home. The two of us originally planned to return to Tianfu City today, but we had to be delayed because of Hu Song's affairs. I came to the hospital, took out my mobile phone, and called Huaxiu. In order to allow Huaxiu to integrate into modern society and to facilitate contact, I had already equipped her with a phone. The phone just rang a few times before being hung up. I was stunned. What is this girl doing? I called again, but still hung up. I called 5 or 6 times in a row before this girl answered. Brother, what are you doing? You're always on the phone. You're making me lose the game. Just as I was about to answer, I heard Cai Dai's voice from the other side. That's it? That's it? It's so annoying. I was speechless. Two beings who have lived for thousands of years are actually addicted to video games and can't extricate themselves. Stop playing around now, I have a task for you. Brother, what's the mission? I told Huaxiu the purpose of my call. After hearing this, Huaxiu was silent for a moment and said, Brother, have you finally decided to do this? But, wouldn't it be too exaggerated to do this? Will Sister Tianqian like it? I was speechless for a moment and asked, then what do you think I should do? Look at it from your woman's perspective. Kaidi interjected, what do you want me to say? Just take Sister Tianqian to have a delicious meal, and then take her to the internet cafe to stay up all night. I was speechless. This girl Cai Dai has never been reliable. Huaxiu told me her idea, and when I heard it was indeed what happened, I discussed it with her for a while and finally made up my mind. By the way, brother, the female demon is back. Hearing this news, I breathed a long sigh of relief. It'll be good to come back, it'll be good to come back. At this time, Su Tianxuan's voice sounded behind me. Xiao Su, who are you calling? I turned around with some guilt and replied, He Huaxiu. Su Tianqian said oh without saying anything, turned around and went back to the house. Okay, just do as I say. We will go back in a few days. We encountered something in the village. Good. After hanging up the phone, I returned to the house and saw Su Tianqian sitting on the 8 Immortals chair reading a book. The same thing happened when I first met her. Stop reading, what's so interesting about books? I said. Su Tianqian raised his head and asked, what can you do if you don't read? I thought about it, smiled and said, come on, let's make out and make out. Su Tianxuan's pretty face turned red, she rolled her eyes and said, go, go. You're so greasy. Just play tricks on me in broad daylight, or I'll beat you up. I smiled and said, well, since you don't want to, forget it. With that said, I am going to prepare what I need tonight. Just as I turned around, Su Tianqian stopped me. I turned around and saw her standing up with a blushing face and coming to me. She leaned forward, gently pressed her lips to my face, and said, is this okay? I stretched out my hand and took Su Tianqian into my arms. She exclaimed and began to struggle. Xiao Su. Don't make fun of others in broad daylight. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanbao. Chapter 1503. Su Tianxuan's pretty face turned red, and she struggled subconsciously a few times, and I hugged her tighter. I looked at Su Tianxuan's delicate lips and leaned down without any hesitation. When our lips met, I freely expressed my inner love for Su Tianqian. I'm really obsessed with this life now. But I know that this kind of life will not last long and may even be fleeting. However, people should live in the present and cherish everything now, which is what I need to do. After lingering for a long time, I let go of Su Tianqian. Su Tianqian blushed, stretched out his jade hand, pinched my waist hard, and complained, "My friend, can you please stop playing tricks on me during the day in the future? What should I do if someone comes?" I smiled and said, "Just close the door." Su Tianqian was startled, broke away from my arms, hit my head hard, and said angrily, "Why are there so many unreasonable ideas? I'm ignoring you." With that said, Su Tianqian turned and left. Watching Su Tianxuan's leaving figure, I helplessly shook my head and smiled bitterly. Time soon came to night. After dinner, Su Tianqian and I went to Hu Songzi's house, and then took Hu Songzi to the Fox Fairy Temple. The Fox Fairy Temple is located at the east entrance of the village. The temple is not big, but it has been cleaned cleanly by the villagers. Before entering the Fox Fairy Temple, you can smell the rich aroma. Su Tianqian and I entered the Fox Fairy Temple. There was a statue of the Fox Fairy placed in the main hall. Incense was burning on the table in front of the statue, emitting curls of smoke. "Brother Hu, kneel down," I said to Hu Songzi. Hu Songzi nodded, then knelt in front of the statue of the Fox Fairy. I took out the incense, put it in the incense burner and lit it. I kneaded it with both hands and recited the incantation in my mouth. On the 3 days above, Tao is respected. Among all things, burning incense is the first. Today, the incense of Tao, the incense of virtue, the incense of inaction, the incense of inaction, tranquility, and nature. The incense was slowly rolled out, and the smoke curled up. However, after chanting a few words, the incense suddenly went out. Seeing this situation, I frowned and the incense went out, which meant that the Fox Fairy did not accept my offering and was unwilling to show up. I glanced at Su Tianqian. Her expression was extremely calm, and she said calmly, "If she doesn't want to come out, just force her to come out." I nodded and looked at the statue of the Fox Fairy, my expression gradually turning cold. "I have said all my good words and given you enough face. Since you don't listen, don't blame my ruthless men for smashing up your temple and destroying your statues. It's a matter of affection to be polite before fighting. If you don't accept my courtesy and refute my face, then you'll be tough." Having said that, I squeezed the art with both hands and performed the 9 layers of thunder art. I superimposed the power of thunder technique to the 5th level. After returning from the underworld, my strength has made a qualitative leap again. I can squeeze the 5-level thunder technique as easily as I want without any difficulty. Blue lightning burst out from the palm of my hand, and in an instant, the entire Dark Fox Fairy Temple was shrouded in blue thunder. I walked slowly towards the statue of the Fox Immortal. When I came to the statue, I raised my right hand with the thunder technique and struck it towards the statue of the Fox Immortal without any hesitation. Just when the lightning was about to touch the statue, a woman's voice suddenly sounded in my ears. "Stop." I raised a sneer at the corner of my mouth and said, "Stop? I'm telling you, it's too late. I am not used to the Fox Fairy's behavior at all. If it were before, I might be afraid, but now it is different. I have nothing to fear." When I lowered my right hand, thunder and lightning exploded, directly smashing the statue of the Fox Fairy to pieces. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanba. Chapter 1504. After the statue of the Fox Fairy was shattered, a dark wind surged throughout the Fox Fairy Temple, and the temperature dropped sharply. I subconsciously shuddered. I looked around cautiously. At this time, Su Tianqian said, "In the back." I turned around and saw a slim and charming woman in red clothes appearing behind me. The woman's expression was cold, and her eyes were full of hatred when she looked at me. "How dare you smash my statue? You are seeking death." As soon as she finished speaking, the demonic aura around the woman surged, and immediately after, 6 crimson streaks appeared out of thin air from behind her. 6-tailed demon fox? It seems that this fox has a good reputation. For the sake of protecting my village, I gave you a chance and wanted to talk to you, but you didn't appreciate it. In this case, this is the only way. Hatred flashed in the eyes of the six-tailed fox demon, and he said to me, Lusu, who do you think you are, and you are worthy of talking to me? I will tell you today, he must die. Not only him, but the whole village, no one can escape. Seeing that the conversation was fruitless, I was too lazy to talk nonsense with her. Just as I was about to take action, the six-tailed demon fox made a move, and all six red tails attacked me. The fox's tail moved, creating strong winds. The six-tailed demon fox moved so fast that it was impossible to catch it with the naked eye. Its six tails were attacking me from six directions, making it impossible to avoid it. My face condensed, and I cast the pure lotus mark. Holy white light emerged around me, transforming into the shape of a white lotus and surrounding me. Six red tails whipped hard on the white lotus. When Fox Tail came into contact with Balian, an extremely powerful aura erupted. Hu Songzi, who was kneeling on the ground, was directly thrown away by this powerful aura. My face condensed, I used Nine Eyes Heaven Realm, and disappeared instantly. I held my right hand in the air, and Jingxiao appeared in my hand out of thin air. When I reappeared, I was already behind the six-tailed demon fox. I raised Jingxiao in my hand and pressed it against the fox demon's neck. I will give you one last chance to let Hu Songzi go and explain clearly why you want to kill the villagers, I said coldly to the fox demon. Under my threat, the fox demon subconsciously tried to struggle. With a thought, a blank heavenly secret talisman appeared out of thin air, and I immediately began to draw the talisman. In less than a second, a demon-suppressing talisman was completed. I waved my hand casually, and the demon-suppressing talisman was placed between the eyebrows of the six fox demons. The fox demon's sea-like aura was instantly suppressed by me. She looked at me in surprise and shouted in disbelief, Lusu, how did you? The fox demon knows me. After all, she has stayed in the village for so many years and received all kinds of incense. My grandfather would often come here to worship her. I didn't want to be your enemy. When I saw you, I just wanted to have a good talk with you, I said to the fox demon. The fox demon fell into silence. It was obvious that she was aware of my behavior. I can suppress her with a demon-suppressing talisman. If we really fight, she is no match for me. Lusu, don't worry about this matter. You can't afford to offend the people behind me. The fox demon gives good advice. I sneered and asked, is Sudaji behind you? The fox demon was startled, and although she did not answer, the subtle changes in her expression had betrayed her. You have stayed in the village for so many years. I think you have long regarded this place as your home. If you tell me, everything can go back to the way it was before. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanba. Chapter 1505. The Fox Fairy Temple has existed here since I can remember. Moreover, our village has existed for a long time. The six-tailed demon fox in front of me has been here for at least hundreds of years. It has been worshipped by villagers for more than a dozen generations, and it has also protected the village for hundreds of years. Since I can remember, there have been no major disasters in the village. Every year the crops grow lush and green, and the harvest is full in autumn. If you say that this matter has nothing to do with the six-tailed demon fox, I don't believe it. After hearing my words, the six-tailed demon fox fell into silence. After a while, he said, Lusu, I have watched you grow up since I was a child. When your family encountered great changes, I also wanted to help, but, with my strength, I can't help your family at all. Your grandfather also treated me very well. I am grateful to your Lu family. No one can handle what happened to my family. If the six-tailed fox demon chooses to help my Lu family, she will definitely have a hard time. The six-tailed demon fox continued, I just chose not to see you because I didn't want you to get involved in this muddy water. This matter concerns the 4 major fox clans and you can't solve it. Is it related to the 4 major fox clans? What is this Sudaji up to? I said nothing and continued to listen to the 6-tailed demon fox. But what about you? I only wanted to do your best, but you not only smashed my statue, but you also put a sword on my neck. The 6-tailed demon fox looked at me with a grieved expression. I felt embarrassed. If I didn't do this, the 6-tailed demon fox wouldn't choose to see me. I took a deep breath and said, this matter is very important to me. There is a big connection between Sudaji and I. If she doesn't die, I will die. Therefore, I have fallen into a quagmire and you can't pull me out. Come out and tell me the truth. Afterwards, I will compensate you and build you a golden body to speed up your cultivation. The fox demon and I are not enemies at all, on the contrary, we have a close relationship. The fox fairy fell into silence again. After a while, he let out a long sigh and said, in that case, I will tell you. There are 2 reasons why I want to kill him. The first reason is that he is my sitting boy. When the time comes, he will naturally return to my sitting boy. The second reason is, Sudaji. I took back Jingxiao in my hand, and the fox demon glanced at me faintly, and continued, everyone knows that Sudaji is dead, but in fact, Zhangxia spared her life, and Sudaji also paid the corresponding price. I asked doubtfully, what price? Cut yourself off the Kuabai. Cut off the Kuabai. The tail is extremely important to the fox demon, as it is where the power lies. When the fox demon practices, he will trim his tail first. Once the tail is cut off, all power will be lost. And the fox's tail also has a very special ability. That is, after docking the tail, it can fulfill a wish of ordinary people and can also be transformed into some kind of weapon. Because the tail is where the fox demon's power lies, and cutting off the tail to fulfill one's wish is equivalent to using one's own deeds to help others. Then what? I asked. These 9 tails were taken away by Zhangxia and hidden in 3 places. Sudaji has retrieved 3 tails, and there are still 6 tails left. Since we are looking for tail, what does that have to do with our village? The 6-tailed demon fox said quietly, those 3 tails are in Tishan. Su and Tishan are at odds with each other. It is difficult to get the tails back. Therefore, Sudaji asked us to capture people alive for them to restore their Taoism. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1506. In addition to practicing on their own, the fox demon can also increase their spiritual power by eating people. This Sudaji is really ruthless. The 6-tailed demon fox continued, moreover, she asked me to attack the village by name. This sentence made me slightly startled. Could it be that Sudaji knew that this was my village? The matter is almost understood. The purpose of the 9 evil stars is nothing more than to open the coffin. Sudaji retrieved his tail to regain his strength and prepare for opening the coffin. Now that Sudaji only has 3 tails, he shouldn't be very experienced, so it should be easy for me to deal with him. Thinking of this, I said to the 6-tailed fox demon, okay, don't worry about this matter. I am here to protect the whole village. You can do whatever you need to do. I will handle Sudaji's side. The 6-tailed demon looked at me suspiciously and asked, are you really able to do this? I rolled my eyes and said, you don't need to think about this matter. I have my own way. The 6-tailed fox demon snorted softly and said, I didn't expect that the little naughty boy back then would be so arrogant now. Not only did he smash my statue, but he also wanted to kill me. I scratched my head in embarrassment and said, this is also a matter of necessity. If I didn't do this, you wouldn't come out to see me. The six-tailed demon fox didn't care too much about this matter. After all, I promised her to give her a golden body. Lusu, I don't care how talented you are, but you have to remember that Sudaji is very cunning. If you wait until her strength recovers, you will definitely not be her opponent. So, I advise you to go to Tishan first and see if you can get those three tails back. I nodded and replied, I understand. After saying this, the six-tailed demon fox disappeared into the air. The matter is resolved and Husongza can survive. Husongza thanked me profusely and even wanted to kneel down for me. I quickly stopped him and said, Brother Hu, you are a little out of touch. I was taken care of by you when I was a child, and this matter is just a little effort. Husongza said, thank you is a must. Let's do this. I will cook at home at noon tomorrow and treat you to dinner. I readily agreed, and then Su Tianqian and I returned home. On the way, I asked, Tianqian, have you heard of Tishan? I've heard of it. Su Tianqian nodded and said, Tishan is the most mysterious existence among the four major fox clans. The foxes of the Tishan clan do not easily enter the world, and they also attach great importance to marriage. I once visited Tishan once mountain. Been to Tishan once? I asked doubtfully. Well, I went there once. Something happened to their Tishan empress, and only a human feng shui master could solve it, so I found me. My eyes lit up and I said, Tianqian, you are kind to Tishan. Let's go to Tishan, we should be able to get those three tails back, right? Maybe. Su Tianqian replied calmly. She and I were walking under the moonlight. As we were walking, Su Tianqian suddenly stopped and asked, Xiao Su, are you hungry? What do you want to eat when we get home? I thought about it and replied, I like to eat everything you cook. Su Tianqian rolled his eyes and said, I feel embarrassed for you when you always say these earthy love words. I looked at Su Tianqian with a smile and asked, what's wrong with the earthy love words? Aren't you blushing? Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1507. I'm just a little hot. Su Tianqian said harshly. I smiled and did not delve further into this issue. I took Su Tianxuan's hand and said softly, when you go home later, I will cook. You can have a good rest. Su Tianqian turned to look at me, his eyes full of tenderness, and said, okay. Just like that, Su Tianqian and I walked hand in hand under the moonlight, with the sky full of stars as a backdrop, and the warm night breeze blowing in. Neither of us spoke. Holding Su Tianqian is like holding the sun. No matter where you are, it's always sunny. How I want to spend every day with Su Tianqian like this, even if it is ordinary, it is the greatest luck for me. The two of us returned home and I cooked. After a while, I walked out of the kitchen with the prepared meal. Su Tianqian has been waiting at the dining table for a long time. Okay, let's eat. Although my craftsmanship is not as good as yours, it's okay. Su Tianqian nodded, picked up the chopsticks, picked up a piece of meat and put it into his mouth. She chewed a few times and her expression changed. I asked doubtfully, what, isn't it delicious? No, it's delicious. I picked up the chopsticks, took a bite of meat, put it in my mouth, chewed it a few times, and was shocked. This meat is actually sweet. I mistakenly mistook sugar for salt. No. I tasted it when I was cooking, it was indeed salt, but why was it sugar? A terrible thought emerged in my mind, my tongue consciousness is slowly losing. At this moment, I finally realized how terrible it was for me to return my 5 senses and limbs to the coffin. Although it is a chronic loss of 5 senses and 4 limbs, is this speed too fast? If it weren't for Miao Fengluan, I estimate that within a month, I would have become deaf and mute, unable to move my limbs. Xiao Su, what are you looking like? Su Tianqian asked suddenly. I raised my head and smiled, look at my cooking skills. I originally wanted to make sweet and sour pork ribs, but I didn't expect it to be so bad. Su Tianqian raised the corners of his mouth, smiled, and said, I'll do it next time. Seeing Su Tianxuan's reaction, I breathed a long sigh of relief. Fortunately, she didn't notice. After eating, I was washing dishes in the kitchen. Su Tianqian wanted to step forward to help, but I stopped him. I'll just come. You can't touch the water these days. Just warm water will do. I'm not that friendly, and it's only been a few days. Needless to say, Su Tianqian came up and hoped with me. I put down the steel wire ball and looked at Su Tianqian quietly without saying a word. What are you looking at me for? Su Tianqian asked doubtfully. I still didn't speak. Su Tianqian sighed slightly, wiped his hands and said, Okay, I'll listen to you. This is so good. I kissed Su Tianqian gently. Su Tianqian blushed and said nothing, just stood aside and chatted with me. After washing the dishes, I asked, Tianqian, I found that you have been special since you came back from the inheritance. What's special? You're very clingy to me. You weren't like this before, were you? Su Tianqian smiled and replied, I just miss you so much. Really? Wife, when did you become so sweet-mouthed? Xiao Su. Don't scream. I'm not your wife yet. It's a matter of time. Su Tianqian was made red-faced and extremely shy by my few words. She was so angry that she raised her pink fist to hit me. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1508. I didn't resist and let her hit me with her pink fist. Xiao Su. You bully me. Don't sleep with me tonight. Su Tianqian said angrily. I took her into my arms and she struggled a few times. When she couldn't break free, she stretched out her hand and started to scratch my itch. I was startled, and then we started to fight with Su Tianqian. The two of us fought from the kitchen to the bedroom, and I pressed Su Tianqian on the bed. Get up, Su Tianqian said angrily. Kiss me and I'll get up. Don't want. Su Tianqian turned his face to the side. At this time, I suddenly saw scarlet blood starting to leave Su Tianxuan's nose. I was stunned at first and quickly got up to find toilet paper. Su Tianqian also felt it. She quickly sat up and stretched out her hand to cover it. I hurriedly wiped Su Tianxuan's nosebleed, then crumpled the toilet paper into a ball and gently stuffed it into her nose. After doing this, I looked at Su Tianqian with some worry and asked, Tianqian, Hua Xiu told me before that you always have nosebleeds. What's going on? Su Tianqian shook his head and replied, I don't know, maybe I'm too angry during this period. Don't worry, I'm fine. Although Su Tianqian said this, I still felt uneasy in my heart. I held Su Tianxuan's hand and said, how about I take your pulse? Su Tianqian looked at me doubtfully and asked, can you take my pulse? I nodded and said, yes. After awakening the memories of Yuan Tiangang, Lu Bowen, and Yun Ziazi, I mastered a lot of things, including feeling the pulse and seeing a doctor. No, I'm fine. Su Tianqian refused. I spoke in a serious tone and asked again and again. Only then did Su Tianqian relent. She stretched out her hand, revealing her white wrist. I skillfully placed my middle finger and index finger on her wrist and began to carefully feel the pulse. After a while, I let go of my hand and breathed a long sigh of relief. Su Tianqian didn't lie to me. She has been very angry recently, and she is a little tired from overwork. How about it? Su Tianqian asked. It's okay. You have a good rest during this time and I will take care of you. Su Tianqian nodded and said, I said it was okay, but you didn't listen, making it seem like I was hiding something from you. I scratched my head in embarrassment and said, aren't you worried about you? Su Tianqian rolled his eyes and said angrily, "This is not a question of worry or not, but a question of trust. Xiao Su, you are everything to me. You said, what can I hide from you? You, on the other hand, have a childhood sweetheart who you haven't told me about. I feel more and more embarrassed. Is this considered a slap in the face to Su Tianqian? Okay, my fault, just lie down first." With that said, I stood up and walked towards the kitchen. I didn't notice that after I left, Su Tianqian breathed a long sigh of relief, stretched out his left hand tremblingly, and released the seal. I made a cup of brown sugar water for Su Tianqian in the kitchen, and then returned to the bedroom with the brown sugar water. Su Tianqian was lying in the room, holding a book and reading it with gusto. I put the brown sugar water on the table and said, "Drink this first." Su Tianqian nodded, picked up the brown sugar water, and took a sip. "It's a little hot." I was startled, then took the brown sugar water and took a sip. "Brown sugar water is warm, why is it hot?" I glanced at Su Tianqian and saw her blushing face and lowering her eyes. I instantly understood what she was thinking. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanbo. Chapter 1509. I put the brown sugar water on the table and said to Su Tianqian, "Wait for me here." Su Tianqian nodded slightly. I went to the kitchen and rummaged through the cabinets to find a spoon, and then returned to the room. I sat next to Su Tianqian, holding a cup in one hand and a spoon in the other. I gently scooped up a spoonful of brown sugar water, blew a few mouthfuls and handed it to Su Tianxian's mouth, and then whispered, "Drink." Su Tianxian's pretty face turned slightly red. She opened her lips slightly and drank the brown sugar water from the spoon. I fed him spoonful by spoonful, and Su Tianqian drank it in small sips. Soon he finished the brown sugar water. I never expected that Su Tianqian would have such a cute side. The more I looked at him, the more I liked him. I changed into my pajamas, lay down next to Su Tianqian, stretched out my hand and got into her nightgown, then gently touched her flat and smooth belly, and then started to rub it gently. I asked softly, "Does this feel better?" Su Tianqian replied softly, his eyes full of tenderness. After rubbing it for a long time, Su Tianqian said with some distress, "Xiao Su, stop rubbing it, let's go to sleep." Su Tianqian put down the books in his hands and lay down. I smiled and said, "It's okay." I hugged Su Tianqian gently from behind, and still put my right hand on her belly and rubbed it gently. I don't know how long it took, but the sound of Su Tianxian's even breathing came to my ears. Gradually, sleepiness came over me and I fell into a deep sleep. In the middle of the night, I felt Su Tianqian shaking slightly beside me. I sat up in a daze and looked at Su Tianqian in the moonlight. Su Tianqian was seen curled up into a ball, his hands covering his lower abdomen, his face full of pain. I was slightly stunned. I had seen Su Tianqian come to trouble before, but she was not as painful as this time. I felt so distressed that I turned on the night light, went to the kitchen to boil a pot of hot water, found a hot water bottle and filled it, and then wrapped it thoughtfully in a towel. When I returned to the bedroom, I gently placed the hot water bottle on Su Tianqian. On the lower abdomen. I said with some distress, "Tianqian, are you feeling better?" I'm fine," Su Tianqian replied with a trembling voice. I felt heartbroken when I saw her look like this. I gently held her in my arms, feeling completely sleepy. "Antenna, I remember you were never in such pain before? This time?" Su Tianqian shook his head slightly and replied, I don't know, maybe I caught a cold recently." I didn't continue talking, just hugged her. That night, I didn't sleep at all. After the hot water in the hot water bottle got cold, I changed it again, and I gently rubbed her belly. Around 4 o'clock in the morning, Su Tianqian fell asleep, and I stayed awake until dawn. Su Tianqian slowly opened her eyes and saw me sitting on the edge of the bed, not sleeping. She looked at me distressedly. "Xiao Su, I'm sorry." I smiled and said, "Let's not talk about this between you and me. You lie down for a while and I will cook for you." I went to the kitchen and cooked porridge for Su Tianqian, then brought the porridge to the bedside and fed it to her with my own hands. On this day, Su Tianqian was lying on the bed, and I was waiting on him. I only took a nap at noon. By evening, Su Tianqian recovered. I was just about to prepare dinner when I heard Hu Songzi shouting at the door, "Xiao Su, I'm here to treat you to dinner." Only then did I remember that Hu Songzi was going to treat me to dinner tonight. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1510. I looked at Su Tianqian and said, "Tianqian, if you don't feel well, you should stay at home." Su Tianqian tilted his head and looked at me and asked, "Do you want to eat alone?" I was stunned and said with a smile, "How could that be? Su Tianqian is really naughty sometimes, and I am the only one who wants to come to the world to see her." Su Tianqian and I walked out of the room, and Hu Songzi greeted us warmly. "Xiao Su, brother and sister, come with me quickly. We have been waiting for you two for a long time." Su Tianqian and I looked at each other with doubts in our eyes. I looked at Hu Songzi and asked, "Brother Hu, everyone?" Hu Songzi laughed and said, "That's right. I originally wanted to treat you and your siblings to a meal at home, but the village chief scolded me after hearing this, saying that you are the hero of the village. How could you do it so hastily? So the village chief invited the whole village to hold a big banquet at his house as a thank you and as a way to cleanse the world for you." It dawned on me and I thought that Mr. Fu was being too polite. Later, Su Tianqian and I went to Fu's hometown. Before I even got close to Fu's hometown, I heard bursts of noise. After passing a corner, I came to the door of Fu's hometown. The courtyard of Fu's hometown was overcrowded, and all the villagers were chatting and laughing. It was very lively. There were more than a dozen dining tables in the courtyard, and various sumptuous dishes were served one after another. This scene reminds me of the scene when my grandfather took me to a banquet when I was a child. Whenever there is a happy event in the village, my grandfather will definitely be invited. The villagers in our village are also extremely friendly to each other, and there are no conflicts among the folks in the village, which is very good. When the villagers saw me coming, they hurriedly gathered around and started talking in all directions. "Hey! Xiao Su! Long time no see. Do you still remember Aunt Wang? Xiao Su, it's been almost a year since I last saw you. You are so promising. Xiao Su, this is your wife." The villagers were very enthusiastic. I greeted them politely. After chatting for a while, the villagers brought the topic to Su Tianqian. Without exception, the villagers praised Su Tianxian's beauty. Among them, the village's famous matchmaker, Po Zhang, asked, "Xiao Su, are you married to Xiao Xian?" I smiled and replied, "Not yet." When Po Wang heard this, she was startled and quickly called Mr. Fu and said, "Village chief, Xiao Su and Xiao Xian are not married yet. Why don't we treat today's banquet as Xiao Su and Xiao Xian's engagement banquet?" When these words were spoken, they were instantly recognized by the villagers. I looked at Su Tianqian, she just blushed and did not refuse. No matter where I am, this is my hometown after all. Even if I want to marry Su Tianqian in the future, I will come here to inform the villagers. Because my grandfather told me before that one should never forget his roots, and the villagers treated my family very well. Mr. Fu stepped forward and asked, "Xiao Su, do you agree to your proposal?" I nodded and replied, "Then I'll trouble you all." Mr. Fu waved his hands repeatedly and said, "No trouble. No trouble. It just so happens that the children of your age in the village have also come back, so you can have some fun. There are not many people my age in the village, only 7 or 8. However, these 7 or 8 people have all grown up with me, whether they were in elementary school, junior high school, or high school, and some of them have a good relationship with me.